I was just a neighbor doing a favor until she said stay a little longer. The twin sons of Red Mesa were already dipping behind jagged cliffs when Jace Haller nudged his hover wagon along the dusty canyon road. The air smelled of hot metal and desert flowers, strange blooms that only grew on this part of the frontier. He had spent most of his life traveling between settlements, fixing things that broke, and delivering goods across planets. But lately, Jace had been trying to slow down. Life on Red Mesa was slower, quieter. At least, that was the plan. Jace's wagon rattled over a small ridge, and he squinted at the familiar shape of Leora's homestead in the distance. A cluster of metal domes and solar panels, patched and polished in odd angles, gleamed faintly in the sun's last rays. He had known Leora for a few years now. She was the kind of neighbor who kept to herself except when she needed a hand or something fixed. Jace sighed. He hadn't planned to stop today. He had errands to run, supplies to check, and a list of small repairs around his own little settlement. But then he remembered the voice that had called him earlier through the comm. Jace, could you come by? My harvester is acting up again. I know it's late, but I'd really appreciate your help. I'm just a neighbor, not a mechanic for hire, he muttered. Yet something about the tone, the polite urgency, made him turn the wagon toward her place. By the time he arrived, Leora was waiting near the entrance of her main dome. She was tall and lean, with hair tied back in a braid that caught the sunlight. Her hands were smudged with grease, but her eyes sparkled with the kind of excitement only someone who loved their work could have. Thanks for coming, she said, stepping aside. I was hoping it wasn't too late. Late is relative, Jace said with a small smile, hopping down from his wagon. What's wrong with the harvester? Leora gestured to a large solar-powered machine at the edge of her property, its panels tilted awkwardly, humming in uneven rhythms. It's been skipping cycles. I can't get it to stabilize. It started yesterday, right after I moved that old artifact I found buried near the canyon. Jace raised an eyebrow. An artifact? Yeah, she said casually, as if it were normal to dig up strange, glowing objects from the desert. Just a little something I thought might help with my experiment. Jace scratched the back of his neck. He wasn't sure he liked the sound of experiment mixed with mysterious artifacts, but curiosity always got the better of him. Let's see what we can do. They walked together to the harvester. Jace crouched and checked the wiring and control panels, humming thoughtfully. Leora watched him, occasionally pointing to a blinking light or a shifted panel. You've done this before, haven't you? She asked. More times than I can count, Jace said. Machines like this usually just need a little adjustment. Nothing fancy. Minutes passed. The sun sank lower and the air turned cooler. Jace worked silently, but the hum of the harvester changed. It became softer, almost like it was listening to them. Leora tilted her head, frowning slightly. It's different tonight, she said. The artifact might be affecting it. It's never reacted like this before. Jace stood up, wiping sweat from his brow. He glanced at the artifact she had mentioned. It was a small stone, smooth and metallic, about the size of a fist, sitting on a stand near the harvester. Faint pulses of blue light ran across its surface, like tiny waves moving beneath the metal. Interesting, Jace said carefully. He had seen a lot of strange things in his life, but there was something about this artifact that felt alive. Not in a threatening way, but in a way that made him feel watched. Would you maybe stay a little longer? Leora asked, surprising him. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, but the request was clear. Jace blinked. He wasn't used to staying longer than necessary. But something about the artifact, the way it pulsed gently under her careful fingers, made him curious. I guess a little longer wouldn't hurt, he said. They sat near the harvester as night fell, the twin moons rising above the canyon in a pale silver glow. Leora pulled out a small scanner and began pointing it at the artifact, murmuring under her breath. Jace watched fascinated. The scanner projected a holographic map in the air, lines and shapes that shifted like a tiny star system. See that? Leora said. I think it's mapping something. Maybe the underground currents, or maybe something else entirely? I can't tell yet. The artifact's pulses seemed to sync with the faint hum of the harvester, creating a rhythm that was almost musical. It's beautiful, he admitted. Never seen anything like it. Leora smiled. I didn't want to show it to anyone. Too many people would take it away or misuse it, but I trusted you enough to help tonight. Jace felt a warmth he hadn't expected. Trust on the frontier was rare. People were usually too busy looking after themselves. But here, in this quiet desert night, surrounded by the hum of machines and the gentle pulse of an unknown artifact, he felt safe. Hours passed quickly. They talked about life on Red Mesa, about small adventures across the galaxies, and even about dreams neither of them had dared to speak aloud before. The artifact continued to glow, faint and steady, illuminating Leora's face in soft light. Finally, Leora leaned back and stretched. I think that's enough for tonight, but I'm glad you stayed. Me too. I don't usually stick around for experiments or mysteries, but he hesitated, then added, there's something about all of this. I'm glad I came. She gave him a small, knowing smile, and for a moment the desert felt a little less lonely. As Jace finally prepared to leave, the artifact pulsed one last time, brighter than before. A soft shimmer appeared above its surface, like a tiny doorway of light. Jace froze. Leora's eyes widened, but she didn't look scared. She looked expectant. It's reacting to us, she whispered. It's never done this before. Maybe it wants to show something. Jace felt a thrill he hadn't felt in years, a mix of curiosity and the quiet pull of adventure. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a man just passing through the desert. He felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Leora placed a hand gently on the artifact. I don't know what it will show, or if we're ready, but maybe we should see it together. Jace nodded, heart beating faster. The quiet desert night around them seemed to hum with anticipation. The artifact pulsed again, stronger this time, and a faint projection began to shimmer in the air, a glimpse of somewhere far away, bright and alive, unlike anything he had ever seen. He swallowed and glanced at Leora. Well, I guess staying a little longer was the right choice. She smiled. I think it was. And for the first time in months, Jace felt the stirrings of something he hadn't felt in a long while. The call of the unknown, the promise of adventure, and the excitement of a frontier that was far bigger than Red Mesa. The twin moons hung over the canyon as the artifact shimmered between them, and Jace knew, without a doubt, that his quiet life as a neighbor and handyman was about to change forever. The night air of Red Mesa had never felt so alive. The twin moons cast pale silver light across the desert, making the mesas and domes shimmer. Jace Haller stood beside Leora, staring at the artifact as it pulsed softly. The faint projection above it was now clearer, a delicate lattice of lights that shifted and moved like a tiny star system in motion. I've never seen it react like this, Leora said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It usually just hums quietly, but tonight it's like it wants to tell us something. Jace frowned, curiosity mixing with caution. Tell us what? And why now? Leora shrugged, but her eyes betrayed excitement. I don't know yet, but I think it's trying to show us a map. Or place. Jace knelt to examine the artifact closer. He had seen a lot of strange devices in his travels, but this one was different. It didn't feel mechanical. It felt alive. Its metal surface shimmered with subtle blue lines that moved like veins, and the pulses were almost like a heartbeat. Have you ever touched it? Jace asked. Leora nodded. Yes, but only lightly. It responds to energy. Biological energy, I think. That's why it hasn't worked properly with machines alone. I need a human nearby, but it also reacts differently to different people. Jace chuckled. So it likes me? Maybe it likes curiosity. That might be rarer than most things on Red Mesa. For a moment, they both laughed, letting the tension ease. But then the projection shimmered again, brighter this time. A small ripple appeared in the middle of the light lattice, like a doorway forming in thin air. Is that a door? Leora nodded, her fingers hovering over the artifact. It looks like one, but I've never seen it strong enough to open completely. I didn't even know it could do this. Jace took a deep breath. He had spent years traveling across the stars, fixing problems, avoiding danger. Yet now, standing in front of this glowing artifact, he felt a thrill he hadn't felt in years. His life on Red Mesa had been slow, quiet, safe, but that safety had started to feel small. Do you want to see where it goes? Leora asked softly. Jace hesitated. We don't even know if it's safe. It's not dangerous, she said. At least, I don't think it is. But it wants to show us something. I can feel it. He knew Leora was right. She always had a way of understanding the frontier, of knowing when curiosity was worth the risk. All right, he said. Let's see it. Leora reached out and pressed both hands gently on the artifact. The pulses of light grew stronger, spreading across its surface like liquid electricity. The lattice above them expanded, forming a shimmering oval large enough for a person to step through. Jace swallowed, a mixture of excitement and nervousness flooding him. It's bigger than I thought. Step carefully, it feels fragile. But I think it can hold us. Together they stepped closer. The light washed over their faces, warm and bright, and for a brief second, everything else, the desert, the mesas, the quiet night, disappeared. Then, in a blink, they were somewhere else. The air was different here. Cooler, cleaner, and tinged with a faint metallic scent. The ground beneath their feet glimmered with fine crystals that reflected the light from 2 distant suns. Before them stretched a strange frontier town, suspended on a floating asteroid. The buildings were made of smooth silvery metal and clear panels that let light pass through, casting colorful reflections on the ground. Small hovering wagons moved along invisible rails, and robotic animals wandered gently among the settlers. Jace stared. This is amazing. Leora's eyes sparkled. I told you it was a place. The artifact? It chooses who can see it. I think it wants us here. They began to walk through the town. The settlers, humanoid but with subtle differences in skin tones and markings, greeted them warmly. Some paused, studying the newcomers with curiosity, but no one seemed alarmed. The town had a quiet energy, like it existed on the edge of discovery, always waiting for the next challenge. Jace couldn't stop looking around. The technology was unlike anything he had ever seen, yet it had a natural, lived-in feel. Floating water tanks glided beside gardens that grew strange, luminous plants. Robotic wildlife grazed peacefully alongside settlers. Everything seemed balanced in harmony. Where does everyone live? Jace asked, amazed. Small habitats scattered across the asteroid, Leora explained. They built it to float here, between the stars. It's a frontier, yes, but a safe one. At least, mostly safe. They explored further, and Jace noticed the artifact in Leora's hand pulsing more strongly than before. It seemed happy somehow, as if the journey itself pleased it. Suddenly, a small drone floated up beside them, whirring softly. It had a spherical body with multiple tiny arms. One arm extended toward the artifact, but Leora quickly blocked it. No, it's not ready yet, she said firmly. The drone hovered, blinking with curiosity, then backed away respectfully. Jace raised an eyebrow. Even the robots are polite here. Leora laughed. Yes, this place has rules and respect. It's not just about survival. It's about understanding. As they continued, they reached the edge of the floating asteroid. Below them stretched an endless void of stars and colorful gas clouds. The sensation was dizzying, beautiful, and humbling all at once. Jace felt his old life, the quiet routines, the slow days, fall away. Here, anything was possible. Do you think the artifact brought us here for a reason? Jace asked. I do, Leora said. I think it wants to show us potential. Maybe it's testing us. Maybe it's asking if we're ready for something bigger. Jace nodded slowly. I like that idea. Bigger. I've been coasting for too long. Maybe this is what I needed. For the next few hours, they explored the asteroid frontier. Leora introduced Jace to settlers who were experimenting with alien plants, creating energy from the asteroid's magnetic fields, and building devices that seemed almost magical in their simplicity and power. Jace listened. Everything here seemed alive with curiosity, invention, and the kind of adventure that didn't exist on Red Mesa. At one point, they came across a small garden where a glowing flower bent toward Leora as she approached. The artifact in her hand pulsed in response, sending a wave of soft light through the petals. Jace smiled. I think it likes you. Or maybe it likes curiosity, or companionship. Who knows? It's a mystery, and that's part of the fun. As the twin suns began to set on this strange world, casting long shadows across the floating town, Jace realized something. He didn't just want to explore the asteroid or learn its secrets. He wanted to be part of it. He wanted to help build, understand, and grow with this frontier. And with Leora. Do you think we can stay? He asked quietly. Leora glanced at him, then at the artifact. Its pulses had slowed, gentle and steady, as if waiting for their answer. I think, if we're careful, yes. But it's not just about staying. We have to understand it, learn from it, respect it, and maybe one day help others see what it wants to show. Jace nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. For the rest of the night, they wandered the town, talking to settlers, learning about their lives, and sharing stories of their past adventures. The artifact glowed softly, a steady presence that seemed to approve of their choices. By the time they returned to the small docking platform where they had arrived, the first stars of Red Mesa's distant galaxy were visible in the sky. Jace looked at Leora and smiled. This feels right, he said. Leora smiled back. It does. And tomorrow, we start learning. There's so much to discover here, and I think we're ready. As they settled under a gentle dome that shimmered like glass and metal, Jace felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Wonder. The frontier wasn't just about dust and sun anymore. It was alive, strange, and beautiful, and for the first time, he knew he had found a place where he truly belonged. And somewhere, beneath the shimmer of alien suns and the pulse of the artifact, Jace felt the quiet promise of adventure calling him forward. The first light of the twin suns spread across the floating asteroid, painting the silvery buildings and crystalline gardens in warm gold and soft violet. Jace Haller awoke to the gentle hum of the artifact resting nearby, its soft pulses echoing like a heartbeat in the quiet morning. He blinked, stretched, and felt a thrill of excitement course through him. Last night had been full of wonder, but today promised discovery, and he couldn't wait to step further into this strange floating frontier. Leora was already up, adjusting the small solar panels that powered their temporary dome. Her hair caught the light, making it glow like a braid of copper fire. "Morning?" she said, smiling without looking up. "Ready to see more?" "Absolutely. Where do we start?" Leora gestured to the center of the asteroid, where a small plaza glimmered with crystal and metal. Settlers were already active, tending floating gardens, guiding small robotic animals, and testing strange devices that hovered above their hands. "We start with understanding this place," she said. "There's more to see, and I think the artifact wants us to explore further. But we have to be careful. It's alive in a way, and it reacts to us." Together, they walked through the town. Jace marveled at the sights, water flowing along suspended channels that glimmered like liquid glass, trees that floated slightly above the ground, and glowing plants that swayed as if responding to the visitors' steps. Settlers smiled and waved at them. Some offered fruit that shimmered with soft light, and others demonstrated small tools that bent gravity to make lifting easier. "This place feels like a dream," Jace said, his eyes wide. "But it's all real." The settlers work hard to keep the balance. The artifact brought us here because it sensed curiosity, and maybe because it sensed that we can help. They reached a small workshop where a group of settlers were experimenting with floating seeds. Leora introduced Jace, and a small girl with metallic, silver-streaked hair handed him a tiny glowing seed. "Watch this," she said, her voice filled with excitement. She placed the seed on a hovering tray, and it floated upward, gently spinning in mid-air. Then, with a soft pulse of light, the seed began to grow, stretching into a miniature glowing tree within seconds. Jace blinked. "That's incredible." The girl smiled. "It's called a skyfruit tree. The artifact teaches us things. How to work with energy. How to grow without harming the balance." Jace looked at Leora. "The artifact? It's like a guide." "Yes," she said softly. "But only for those who listen, and only if you respect it." As they explored further, they came across a small canyon on the edge of the asteroid. A thin bridge of crystal stretched across a glowing chasm. The winds here were gentle but carried a strange hum. Jace felt the artifact pulse stronger in his hand. "Do you feel that?" he asked. "I do," Leora said. "It's calling us. I think it wants us to go across the bridge." He had crossed many dangerous paths in his life, but the bridge seemed alive. It shimmered as if the light itself was holding it together. "All right," he said, taking a careful step. "Here goes nothing." The bridge responded to his weight, pulsing softly and adjusting to their steps. Leora followed, laughing lightly as the path shifted beneath her feet. It felt like walking on the surface of a living crystal, smooth yet responsive. When they reached the other side, they were met with a grove of glowing trees whose leaves pulsed in time with the artifact. "This place," Jace whispered, "it's like it's breathing." "It is," Leora said. "The artifact connects everything here, the plants, the settlers, the energy of the asteroid itself. It's not just a map or a tool, it's the heart of this place." Suddenly, a ripple of light moved across the grove. Small robotic animals, fox-like creatures with glowing tails, appeared, darting playfully between the trees. They stopped near Jace and Leora, sniffing the air, curious but friendly. Jace knelt and extended a hand. One of the creatures brushed against him, its tail leaving a soft shimmer in the air. "It's welcoming us," Jace said, amazed. Leora nodded. "It recognizes the artifact." It trusts us because we are careful, curious, and respectful. But not everyone earns that trust immediately. For the next few hours, they wandered the grove, learning how the settlers worked in harmony with the environment. Jace tried planting a skyfruit seed, and though it wobbled uncertainly at first, it eventually stabilized and grew into a small glowing plant. He laughed with delight. "This is incredible," he said. "Back home, I fix machines and deliver supplies. Here, I feel like I'm part of something bigger." That's the frontier. Not just survival, it's understanding, discovery, growth. As the suns began to set, painting the sky in deep purples and golds, they returned to the town. The settlers gathered for the evening, sharing stories, music, and laughter. Jace listened, feeling a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Then the artifact pulsed sharply, and the holographic light above it shifted. A new pattern appeared, lines of energy connecting different points across the floating asteroid. Leora frowned. "It's showing us something new. A path, or maybe a challenge." Jace studied it carefully. A challenge? Something to test us, something that will teach us how to work together, and maybe prepare us for bigger discoveries. The pattern led toward the far edge of the asteroid, where cliffs dropped into the endless void of space. Jace felt a thrill. "Adventure, then, just like the old days."
Leora laughed. "Yes, but different."
No danger, only learning, only understanding. They packed supplies and began to follow the artifact's guidance. The path was filled with floating platforms, shifting bridges, and small energy fields they had to navigate. At each step, the artifact pulsed in response to their movements, guiding them gently but firmly. Jace discovered that working with Leora made everything easier. They communicated with small gestures, learning to anticipate each other's moves. Leora's knowledge of the artifact and the asteroid complemented Jace's practical experience. Together, they felt unstoppable. Finally, they reached a hidden alcove at the edge of the asteroid. A small pool of liquid crystal reflected the light of the twin suns. The artifact pulsed intensely, its light forming a delicate spiral above the pool. "It's beautiful," Jace whispered. "Yes," Leora said, "and it's teaching us." See how the spiral flows? It's showing us energy currents, the life force of the asteroid. If we understand this, we can help the settlers harness it safely. Jace knelt by the pool, reaching out his hand. The artifact glowed, and a soft warmth spread through his fingers. The currents of energy flowed like ribbons of light, winding around him and Leora. They laughed, feeling the sensation of pure connection to the artifact, to the asteroid, and to each other. Hours passed. They experimented, learned, and discovered more about the artifact and the world it connected. Every pulse of light revealed new patterns, new possibilities. Jace felt a deep satisfaction, a joy that came not from conquest, but from understanding. As the twin suns set completely, casting the asteroid in a gentle glow, Jace looked at Leora. "I think I've never felt like this before. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Leora smiled. "That's the frontier. It doesn't just challenge you. It teaches you who you are." The stars above shimmered faintly, reflected in the crystal pools around them. The artifact pulsed gently, almost like it was approving of their progress. "This is only the beginning," Leora said. "Tomorrow, the artifact will show us more. There are other places, other lessons, and maybe even more secrets." The frontier wasn't just a place. It was alive, mysterious, and full of endless possibilities. And for the first time in years, he wasn't just a visitor. He was part of it. As they settled in their temporary dome for the night, Jace felt a quiet joy. He had come to Red Mesa seeking a simple, slow life. Instead, he had found adventure, discovery, and a partnership that felt stronger than anything he had known. The artifact pulsed softly beside them, its light a gentle reminder that the universe was full of mysteries waiting to be explored. And Jace knew, deep down, that their journey was only beginning. Outside, the floating asteroid shimmered under the twin moons, a frontier suspended between stars, alive and waiting. And somewhere in the distance, the artifact's light hinted at paths they had yet to discover. The adventure had only just begun. The next morning, Jace Holler woke to a quiet hum, soft and steady, coming from the artifact. The twin suns of the floating asteroid were climbing higher, spilling light over the crystalline town and reflecting off the glimmering pools. He stretched and glanced at Leora, who was already examining the artifact with careful concentration. "Good morning," he said, smiling. Leora looked up, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Morning. The artifact has been active all night. I think it's ready to show us something big today." The past few days had been filled with discovery, laughter, and wonder. The The floating town, the glowing gardens, the robotic wildlife, it had all felt magical. But now, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, like the artifact itself was urging them forward. "What kind of big?" Jace asked. Leora hesitated, tracing the delicate pulses of light on its surface. "I'm not entirely sure. But I think it's a test of understanding, of trust, and maybe a choice. It's going to show us the full potential of this world." Jace nodded, a thrill coursing through him. He had spent years wandering the galaxy, fixing things, delivering supplies, and avoiding danger. This felt different. Here, he wasn't just solving problems. He was part of something alive, something bigger than himself. They stepped toward the projection, and the artifact's light expanded, forming a luminous doorway similar to the first one they had stepped through. Beyond it, the air shimmered with vibrant colors, like liquid rainbows frozen in mid-motion. Jace felt a pull in his chest, a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Ready?" Leora asked softly. "As I'll ever be," Jace said. They stepped through together, and instantly the world around them shifted. They were no longer on the main asteroid, but floating above a vast field of crystalline spires, suspended in an endless void of stars. Light from distant suns glimmered off the spires, creating sparkling reflections that danced across their faces. "This," Jace whispered. "It's beautiful." Leora nodded, equally amazed. "It's the heart of the artifact, the core of this frontier. Everything we've seen, every plant, every floating town, it all draws from this energy." As they walked closer to the central spire, the artifact pulsed stronger, sending ribbons of light weaving through the air. Jace reached out, and a ribbon gently wrapped around his hand. He felt warmth and a strange sense of connection, as if the energy was acknowledging him, inviting him to learn, to belong. "The artifact, it's alive," Jace said quietly, "not in a way that can hurt you, but in a way that understands you. It chooses those who are curious, careful, and respectful. It only works with people who can listen, not just touch or use it." They continued across the crystalline field, guided by the artifact's pulsing light. Each step revealed more wonders: floating gardens filled with glowing flowers, streams of liquid light flowing through the spires, and small creatures made of energy that darted playfully around them. "Everything here is connected," Jace said. "The settlers, the plants, even the energy of this place. It all depends on balance." Leora smiled. "Exactly. And the artifact is teaching us how to maintain it. But there's one final lesson: the choice." "Choice?" Leora gestured toward the largest spire, rising above the others like a beacon. The artifact's light formed a spiral staircase of glowing energy leading upward. "The artifact wants to know if we are ready to stay, to commit, to help this frontier grow and thrive, not just visit it. Once we decide, it will either allow us to remain or guide us back to our home world." Jace felt his pulse quicken. His quiet life on Red Mesa seemed distant now, almost unreal. Everything he had done before, the deliveries, the repairs, the long lonely nights, had led him here, to this choice. He glanced at Leora. She looked calm, confident, but her eyes held a hint of hope. "We can do this together," she said softly. Jace nodded. "Yes, together." Hand in hand, they began ascending the spiral staircase. The energy around them pulsed in harmony with each step. The closer they got to the top, the stronger the sensation of connection became. They could feel the heartbeat of the artifact, the rhythm of the frontier, and even the distant pulse of the settlers they had met. It was a living world, and it was calling them to be part of it. When they reached the top, the view took their breath away. From here, the entire asteroid frontier spread out below them. Towns, gardens, streams of energy, and floating animals, all moving in delicate harmony. Beyond the asteroid, stars stretched endlessly in every direction, shimmering like diamonds in the night. "This is everything," Jace said. "Yes," Leora said, "and it's ours to care for, to learn from, to protect." The artifact hovered between them, pulsing brightly. It projected a vision of the galaxy, worlds and settlements far beyond the asteroid, but each planet was connected by faint ribbons of light, like threads in a vast web. "It wants us to know that this frontier is only the beginning," Leora whispered. "There's more out there, more discoveries, more life. But it also wants to know if we're ready to stay here, to nurture what exists, instead of just chasing the unknown." Jace took a deep breath. He thought of his life on Red Mesa, of quiet routines, and then of the days he had spent with Leora in this floating town, discovering, learning, laughing. He realized that adventure wasn't just about danger, it was about growth, connection, and understanding. And here, he could find all of that and more. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "I want to stay. I want to be part of this frontier. And I want to do it with you." Leora's eyes brightened, and she squeezed his hand. "Then we both stay." The artifact pulsed once, then expanded, enveloping them in a warm golden light. A soft melody like wind through crystal filled the air. The energy spirals around them seemed to settle, connecting every part of the asteroid in perfect harmony. "You did well," a gentle voice seemed to echo in the light. "Curiosity, respect, and trust. You have shown these qualities. This frontier welcomes you." He had chosen not just adventure, but purpose. He had chosen to be part of something alive and meaningful. Over the next hours, they explored the heart of the artifact further. Leora showed him how to channel its energy to nurture floating gardens, stabilize crystal pathways, and even communicate with the robotic wildlife. Every action was guided by respect and care, and every pulse of the artifact responded in kind. By the time the twin suns began to set, casting a golden and violet glow across the floating spires, Jace realized he had never felt so alive. The frontier wasn't just a place. It was a living lesson, a world to discover, and a home to nurture. "We did it," Jace said quietly, looking over the vast landscape. "We're really here." "Yes," Leora said, smiling, "and this is only the beginning. Tomorrow the artifact will show us more. There are other mysteries to explore, other lessons to learn. But tonight, we rest. We are part of the frontier now." Jace leaned back, taking in the shimmering view. The settlers moved below, tending to gardens and floating homes. The robotic animals played among the energy streams. And above it all, the artifact pulsed gently, a heartbeat connecting every living thing. He felt a deep sense of belonging. This was more than adventure. It was connection, understanding, and purpose. He had come to Red Mesa seeking a quiet life, but instead he had found a world alive with wonder, a partner in Leora, and a frontier that called him forward every day. Outside, the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the crystalline spires. The artifact glowed softly beside them, steady and calm, as if content. Jay smiled. For the first time in his life, he didn't just feel like a visitor in the universe. He felt like he belonged. And the frontier, alive, endless, and beautiful, awaited tomorrow's discoveries. Adventure wasn't over. It had only just begun.